Okay, can I start?
Ask you to say here you are. Otherwise, we need to use your.
Yes, and how do I see their feedback?
Hola, ¿nos pueden indicar si ya están escuchando bien?
The chat is inside.
¿Nos pueden compartir en el chat si están escuchando la presentación?
Estamos escuchando. Okay. So we will now start a different topic. It is no longer about ORCID. We have a new session here, which is actually a merged session with the common theme of library automation. So if you expected this session to be the RERO ILS session, you are on the right spot, even if you don't expect my voice here at this time. But there has been a change of program because we think it makes a lot of sense also for practical and logistic reasons. My name is Egbert de Smet. I am, or I should actually say, I used to be a professor at the University of Antwerp, whereas I'm now retired, but still active. More importantly, I have been a member, and I'm still a member of the ELINF project, in which we have worked for now almost 10 years to assist Cuban universities with the use of software and applications in information management, like e-learning. For instance, we introduced Moodle, and also we were supervising efforts in library automation. So about 10 years ago, we introduced the ABCD software. And now, after 10 years, and since we are at the end of the project to advise the Cuban community of universities on the future for their library automation. My presentation is actually meant to explain the reasoning which we applied after many discussions amongst ourselves, but also with our Cuban colleagues, discussions about what is a good modern library system, what is needed in the Cuban context, because we know that is quite a specific context. And therefore this presentation, which should not take that much time, by the way, so if you are waiting for RERO, just a little bit of patience, please. But I wanted to explain the views of the ELINF team on library automation and to hand over the responsibilities to hopefully other teams of people. In the title of my presentation, which, if everything is okay, you can see on your screens, you can see that I added a subtitle, Some Personal Reflections from a Distance. What does that mean? We give our own personal opinions, but those were also taken into account when we did the ELINF group discussions. The distance I'm referring to is actually because I'm retired now. So I'm out of the business, which means I'm in a bit of a privileged situation. I shouldn't bother. I shouldn't worry anymore, but still I do. Why is that? It's probably a sickness or personality trait. But anyway, what I'm going to try to explain at least is a personal view shared with my colleagues of ELINF and with a little bit of distance already because we are at the end of the project. My first observation is actually an assumption when dealing with that question, what is a modern library system? That's the theme of the presentation. And I start from an assumption which is that automation is serving the organization or the environment in which it works, and not the other way around, whereas this might be obvious, and I'm afraid I'm going to give quite some obvious statements, but still I think it's good to keep them in mind, to take into account those basic positions. So computer systems, like a library system, they should reflect the organization or the environment in which they work, and not the other way around. An additional observation is that in many cases, when we talk about library systems, the organization, so the one in command of the system, is not the library itself. Or that could be a discussion, where is the command? Is it the library or is it in the overreaching organization like the institute or the university? And that could create conflicts, because in principle, the institute or the university or the wider organization in which the library operates could have different expectations, different views, and therefore it's not always that clear what is the most proper library system to serve the organization. Another observation is that most, as I call it, ready-made turnkey software, so ready-made software which you can buy, even if in many cases quite expensive, but they are more or less closed softwares. They are mostly either too expensive, and then I'm referring to Cuban context, where financial means are not the same as in our Western world. So they are either too expensive or they lack flexibility, adaptability. And that is something which is also to be taken into account. So from these initial observations, I will now try to look more into the question of what is then a modern library system. The organization dictates the use of the software. That was my initial position. And that requires active control over the software. It's not the company selling the software, in case of a commercial system, which is in command of how you use it and what you can do with it. At least that is our position. In that way, in that philosophy, we think free and open source software, so FOSS, as we call it quite often, fits much better this need of control. If you choose a free and open source software, in principle, you have the control. I'm saying in principle.
There's a problem with listening.
Okay, it seems there is a problem, technical problem, so let's have a quick look at that. What is exactly the problem?
You can try. I hear, they don't hear you. Some people doesn't hear you, so therefore.
Yeah, but that will not make any difference, huh?
It made a difference. I don't know why, but it made a difference.
Sorry, we are going to test our setup here for those who can hear me. I can see my microphone signal is moving, so at least it is recording, but not everybody seems to get it.
I don't know if it's here, but okay. I know that.
Hello? Does this make any difference? Can I see the feedback maybe on the chat? People at the University of Holguin, they are listening perfectly, they say, but others are not. So I'm afraid the problem is not here, but with some of the audience. This doesn't make any difference to me. All right. Sorry for those who still are not in touch with the sound of the system here, but I need to continue the presentation because as part of this session, as I already explained, we still want to have a very closer look to the RERO ILS. But I'm trying to introduce you to the philosophy which we, as a project of ELINF, we think fits very well with how we see things. Okay, another positive feedback there about the sound being okay. Let me continue. So I already introduced the idea of free and open source because it raises the level of control the organization can have about the use of the software. But it indeed requires not less, but another type of investment. Not in the acquisition, in the purchase of the system, which often in the case of open source is also free in the economical meaning, meaning the price is gratis, or there is no price, not by definition, but it is quite often the case. But the main observation here is you can, and you are actually encouraged to change the software, to adapt it to your own local situation and needs. But for that, you need trained staff. And training staff is, to say the least, as expensive as buying software, because it's an ongoing expense. And for the Cuban context, we think, and I hope I'm not insulting anybody, but staff is relatively cheap. If you compare that to staff in the Western universities, where salaries are different, we can only take note of that, and therefore the situation might be different in a Cuban context as compared to, for instance, a Belgian context. In Belgium, Most university libraries, they buy software because they have good budgets and their staff is too expensive. It could be the other way around when we look at the situation in Cuba. Okay. The screen is not perfectly following, but at least I think it is still possible to follow the explanation. I'm now looking at information needs. And that is quite a different approach from what I often noted to be used when software is selected. In my view, or in our view, information needs start from a specific situation, a problem, which needs explanation or illustration, which need links for further elaboration, like documents, websites which explain problems, which can help you as a researcher if you are in science, help you as a researcher to find literature on the topic you are going to work on. So the need is in fact situation bound, topic based, which means it is not in the first place source based. It's not that an information need starts from the idea, oh, I need a book or I need a website. In most cases, you don't care whether the information will actually come from a website or a book, or maybe just a colleague explaining to you how to do things. That's the underlying assumption here, that information doesn't bother that much about the sources, even not the formats, but it bothers about the topic itself. And if you are in need of something, you want to know something, you want everything about that, regardless of its format or the source. That is the idea I'm trying to explain here. The next step in my reasoning is that words are still the best handle, the best entry into those topics. So searches into the text of any sort of information, and nowadays assisted by AI, artificial intelligence, can do a wonderful job in assisting to do more powerful text searches, where we actually search for words, whether those words are names of authors or topics or an item from a thesaurus. It doesn't matter. In most cases, technically, they are just words. The users who are using an information system, they are not aware in most cases, except if you are the manager of the system. Users are mostly not aware about the structure of the system. And with structure, I mean, for instance, fields in a database. They don't know whether they should search in this field or in another field. And therefore, our assumption is that indeed words from any field, from any structural part of the information source, are the easiest entry, are the most helpful for users to get what they need, which is their information. Let me try if I can move slightly Yes. To my next slide, which is function above form. Because we are continuing to look into how to select, how to evaluate a good library system. Now, in my personal experience, and that is an old one maybe, but at least a long one, I learned that it is mostly about very superficial features. How does it look like, the system? Does the screen attract users? Are there nice colors, nice buttons, without having that much interest in what is actually behind it? And that is what I mean by using the function ID. What does it do? Many of those features, as I have seen them coming but also passing in the past, that is why I call them fashionable. They don't stay. Sometimes they go and you need a software which has that feature, but a few years later, you find out that those features are not even there anymore, or nobody is using them. Let me give you an example, not actually judging on the use of book covers, but just from a personal experience. Years ago, in African context, so in African universities, where the connection speed at that time was very, very slow. Something I think Cuban colleagues will still recognize. We were looking at different software, and I don't need to name them, but one software was using book covers, so if a user had searched into a catalog, the resulting page with, let's say, 10 titles also contained 10 images of the book covers, which is, of course, very nice, but it took a long time and it took a lot of bandwidth, a lot of volume in the data to be transferred. And I was asking my colleagues there, do you need this? Because in the software we are going to propose, and actually that at that time was also the ABCD system, we had it just as an option. We said, in most cases you don't need it. And I showed my colleagues, look, if we don't use them, and they were very happy to note how much faster the resulting page was appearing on their screen. They didn't have to literally wait. If you are in very slow bandwidth conditions and you need to wait for a page to build up only because of those very small images, then you might say maybe we don't need them. Because what information is in that image? Do we really need to see the image, to check it even, to make sure we are in the right book? Knowing that many sources, many books don't have their front pages available as an image online. Like most cases, they were just referring to Amazon as a service where you could ask, show me the front, the cover of the book in listed in my results. But it's very nice. There was not such also get the screen back.
Yes, it's
Okay, you can see my microphone is okay. I will now share my screen again.
Yes.
I think we are back into operation. It's good to have colleagues over here. Okay, so we have already introduced the example. It's just an example of book covers. How important are there? They, if you are in what I mean by nice, it is attractive, but in some cases it works against efficiency. Is the list of results and not a list of tiny images. Another example might be, but I might be wrong. Again.
yes.
Hello, hello.
Yes.
Okay, back.
I put it that when you enter, you don't have sound. So you have when you enter again, you have to.
Okay. So I was going to just briefly mention another example of something for which not sure points. So the I'm back, but no sound.
Yes, that's always. When you enter, there is no sound.
You need to open your mouth.
When you enter,
Okay, testing the microphone. Seems to work well. Testing the screen sharing.
what you want to start. You see, they can start over my phone. Okay, cool. But it seems I'm not. They don't make. They didn't make me admin. Okay, yeah, we can. Yeah, and then we can ask the people to come back to, and then he explains. It is group. Yes. Yes, all the group of labor. And the administrator also, but then I can also push. Administrator. Okay. You add an administrator. Will be administrator. Okay. Mark. Who's that guy? Can you tell us this?
Fede, Marianela está contestando, pero se escucha mi... Escucha. Soy yo quien estoy hablando, se escucha. ¿Se escucha? Dile que comparta la pantalla a Marianela.
Immediately responds.
But it's okay. Yes, I'm unmuted.
Hello, do you hear me? Yes, okay, so I'm online. You see, Melissa is saying that they can hear you. Okay.
I think I can also talk. Yes.
Esto parece una sala de espiritismo.
In the presentation.
Estamos tratando de que nos vean.
Should I try once more to?
About the presentation. Does they show the presentation?
Yes, they are trying to do that. I don't know why it's taking so long.
But should we see it somewhere, or should I take my own copy?
Okay, if you can do the presentation from here, do it, okay?
Yeah, but only we should synchronize.
But okay, can you try if you can make a presentation from here?
Maybe the worst moment is over.
Now I see something.
Is this your?
Seven.
Number 7.
We try to. Hello, trying again. What about the screen? Should I try mine? I can see that the voice is coming through. Who is going to share the screen? Shall I try myself or Ioannis? I can try once again my. Oh, there we are. So let me just continue. I will try to speed up because your time is also running. So the operating system and responsiveness, whether it could be used by mobile devices, nowadays is not that much a problem anymore. It used to be an important criterion. Is it working in Windows, in Linux, or both? What about other operating environments? But no longer this is a real problem. Unicode, the capacity to also deal with non-Latin alphabets, used to be a big problem in the old days. No longer I consider this to be a crucial criterion. Then I remember we had very tough discussions about rules, because a library system will want to manage circulation of books. And just as an example, how to illustrate how far it could go into complexity, we were thinking about how to deal with the loan of a book which has been reserved. But someone is trying to take the book on loan before the reserve date. Just think about it. It can create enormously complex situations, because what to do with fines? Should you add a new rule with other different fine rules in such a situation? No longer this really poses problems today, and I don't think this is the real matter of the heart when everything working together in consortium the left. Okay. Go down in the presentation, please. Here I was talking about the NoSQL philosophy of databases, which is much more text retrieval rather than field retrieval, where you need values. Okay, anything okay? I can see my voice is there. I don't know about the presentation, but I would like to go through it with just a few more slides today. Okay, I mentioned the JSON standard, which has been placed in reality because it offers a storage format for text information mainly, which we call semi-structured. So you can add structure if you need it, but you don't need to do that if there is no structure. If it is just a long document, you can also fully describe it in JSON language. All information nowadays, and therefore all library systems, need to allow linking up not only with other library systems, but with other systems throughout, like authority systems. And actually, in ELINF project, we have spent a lot of our efforts and attention into these areas. I think the next slide, which is number 11, is the most important one. So I hope I can still finish this one, and then we are very close to the end. We have 3 layers in our document system. The first layer is the layer of documents and information. It's chaotic. Information is content, it has very low level of organization. Next slide, please, number 11. Because that is the one I really would like to comment on. Users need is an organized approach in order to not here, which we can call the organization of the data and the information. Anything like Word documents, PDF files, Excel sheets, videos, websites, anything, and nowadays information. All that electronic information needs molded reformatted into. For that we need filtering, because all formats are different. And in most cases, we are mostly interested only in the words in order to text retrieval. And that is, at least as I see it, a crucial technical feature where library systems nowadays should shine. They should be strong in this aspect of reformatting the chaos into organization. Next slide, please. As we go to the last but one, where I am now introducing the model of open search, which is a very successful software named Elasticsearch, but in just 2 years ago, there was Elasticsearch, which was mostly successful in business applications, where organizations were like we have a chaos of information in all different formats, but we need to be organized for our business. So Elasticsearch offered search indexes, built information, quantitative information, special information, I guess in Excel sheets, but also images, also documents like reports of the board meetings of the organization, etc., etc. And Elasticsearch has been very successful in providing such a framework. And made searchable for end users. Today, Open Search is a bit split out of that Elasticsearch because they are more oriented towards the non-profit use of this concept, all of them being based on open technology. And hello again. Yes, I'm there. We are very close to the end of my presentation. I'm sorry again for all the technical mishaps. On this slide, which is the last but one, I'm just how the existing ABCD3 software actually uses the model which Elasticsearch and nowadays also OpenSearch have adopted, offering a strong layer of intermediate remodeling of the information. And that, for instance, also allows to build data search indexes over different databases, not only your catalog, but maybe also your research repository, where we also deal with documents, or your museum, which is a catalog of objects described with metadata, or your archive system. They could all be just different places processed by the same technology of Elasticsearch. Was done exactly in the same techniques in the old software of APT, or in the part of my presentation. So
Community